You know, the truth is, none of us got into ministry thinking that one day I'm going to get to go into a church and I'm going to get to fire somebody and make their life absolutely miserable. We really got in there because there was a calling on our life to be able to love God, to serve people, to build a team, to grow, and to be on mission. But along the way, we realized that sometimes it's a necessary thing that we have to let people go. And I'm here to talk to you about that time when you actually have to let somebody go. We're doing something that's necessary, but we don't have to do it in an unnecessarily bad way. And so when that decision comes that you need to let somebody go, how do you actually talk to that person? Say, hey, your time with us is coming to an end. But then also, how do you message this from the pulpit? And so really, we're going to talk about messaging leadership transition from the pulpit, from up front, and all of the different various aspects that come along with that. Now, here's the question. What actually starts a pastoral transition to begin with? And for that, we actually have this thing. It's based in the psychology world. It's called the Johari window. And it talks about really along the top, it talks about there are parts of ourselves, there are parts that are known to ourselves as pastors, and then there's parts that are unknown. And then there are parts that are known to others and parts that are unknown to others. And where do these intersect on this pain? Because what happens, we spend a lot of time being very intentional, that on-ramp to bringing somebody new into ministry. And it feels holy and sacred. We have a lot of investment up front, but the off-ramp, the back end is really difficult. It feels a little bit more legal. It feels more cold. It feels like it's more human resource-esque. And so what do we do with that? But the genesis of these pastoral transitions, we have some of these boxes. If it's an open transition, then really that's where your leadership or your elders, whatever your denominational association is, they know what's going on and the pastor knows what's going on. It's a conversation like, hey, in 3 years, I'm going to be stepping down. In fact, one of the things that we say is that you should be talking about your last day of ministry on your first day of ministry, but to have that succession in mind. So it's open, it's out there, and hey, the day's coming. And it builds a culture to really be able to have a lot of health. But then there's also these parts that are what we'd call hidden. The pastor's struggling. They're not happy. They're not getting the attendance. They don't feel called anymore. They feel ragged. They're trying to figure out what's next for them. And so they've decided in their heart, I'm done with this, but they really let it go, and they tell the leadership, hey, I'm done, and kind of blindsides them. But it's a hidden piece, right? But then there is this other part, and we actually call this the blindsided, where it's the leadership knows. Sometimes it feels like everybody knows, but that pastor, and it often hits them, and we've heard this many times. It came out of nowhere. I had no idea it was coming. And then we have a fourth square, really where it's unknown, right? It just, over the course of time, we just kind of realize like this is it, and the Lord is leading. But in that space, we want to be able to educate. And so as we go through, we call our ministry, and our ministry is called Pastoral Transitions. And we really started this out of a heart of oftentimes when a church or an organization has made the decision to let somebody go, oftentimes they're asking, what's next for that organization? What's next for our church? But we're not finding a lot of people that are asking the question, what's next for that outgoing pastor and what's next for that family? And so we're stepping into that space at Pastoral Transitions to be able to walk with those outgoing leaders and to be able to help them. And so as you have to go through these really difficult conversations, and I'll tell you, some of the hardest conversations and really the memories that stick with me the most are those moments where I had to sit in my office as an executive pastor and to sit with a staff member and let them go. And even in the best of terms, it was really difficult. And so how do we actually take this and message this in a way that is going to be helpful and healthy? And so we have 3 things to just hit at you real quickly. And we know that we like to alliterate, so I have 3 C's for you. And they are clarity, compassion, and consistency. So let's jump right in. So clarity. What is the message that's being told? And when we talk about somebody or to somebody that, hey, this is the end and we're going to have to part ways here, we have to think about there are different audiences, right? You're communicating this as a leadership team, but you have to do it to the person, the outgoing pastor, the person that you're letting go, but also what's the communication to their family. Other stakeholders would be the people in your church. What does that look like? What's the timing? How are we going to talk about this and really be clear? What is the reason why we are letting this pastor go? And then you also have to communicate this to the remaining staff members. So let's just say, for example, that this is a financial reason. Hey, we tried really hard for our year-end giving push, and unfortunately we didn't make it. And as a result, we have to let somebody go, a beloved pastor, right? We have to be very clear about that. And so some of the questions that are going to show up, and we have to think through some of these pieces, is if you have multiple people on your team, why is it that this is the person that is being let go? Or are there any other financial decisions that the church is making that could affect other members of the staff? Or couldn't the church just adjust other parts of the budget to make up for that shortfall? And then sometimes they're going to say like, well, let's take away the goldfish crackers from the preschoolers, and then nobody likes that because you can't do that. But we have to realize in these moments, and I'm joking about that, but we have to realize in these moments that there are challenges that are facing the leadership. And this is what's at stake, really. You don't want to model leadership poorly. You don't want to build a lack of trust. We don't want to lose that trust with our congregation. Because if we do that, there's also a really real possibility in a bad transition where there's going to be church division. And when there's church division, then there's loss of giving, and that could lead to more cuts. And so it's important that we transition well. And so for each one of these C words, I want to be able to just throw out there, beware of something and be aware of something. And let's just say that it is for financial reasons. Generosity might kick in, and somebody might say, hey, I'm going to underwrite that person's salary over the course of this next year. So you have to be able to make sure that you have a reason or an answer to that question. If they come and you're saying to yourself, I know this, like, hey, we've been asking and we've been talking about year-end giving for months now, and now you're finally stepping in. Wow, where were you? Right? So what do you say and how do you say that if that comes up? But the other piece is financial accountability. If you are telling your congregation, hey, we don't have enough money in our budget right now, and unfortunately we have to let somebody go, but then all of a sudden you're doing the $40,000 playground remodel, or you're announcing that you're going to hire a new staff person, that is going to undermine everything. So you want to have absolute clarity. Why is it that we are letting this person go? And be clear and have that clarity go to the person, to their family, and then really to the rest of the church. The fruit of clarity is that you are building trust. Next one is compassion. When we look at compassion, we need to feel compassionate. We want to be able to do this. So how do you communicate and message compassion from the pulpit when there's a leadership transition? And so there's a couple of things. Number one is to acknowledge the pastor's service. Say they've been here for a long time. We know that they've been here, whether it's 2 years or 10 years, to be able to say they've made incredible contributions to the kingdom and to this community, and to be able to intentionally, specifically label those and put those out there. Another one would be to acknowledge the difficulty of the decision, that this is hard. We love this person, that this person's been part of our community, and it's hard for us to say goodbye. No matter what the situation is, anytime there is a break or a breach in any of these things, it's always a difficult piece. And then to acknowledge that the road ahead is not easy. It's not going to be easy for anybody, but I also want us to understand and to be able to communicate the outgoing pastor is going to face some challenges. It's a traumatic piece. Sometimes, especially if they're blindsided, there is trauma. They're experiencing something, sometimes in isolation. They feel isolated. Like how could, it feels like a betrayal, which oftentimes will lead to loneliness. You go from being surrounded by community, lots of people, to really trying to find your way, or finding employment. What am I going to do after I'm a pastor? Can I be a pastor? If they've been disqualified, what else can they do? Are they going to be working at Home Depot or Starbucks? And a lot of times people don't really understand that pastors don't get unemployment benefits, and that's hard, which leads to financial devastation. Sometimes they have to move. Sometimes they're losing their community. They have to go somewhere else altogether. And in some cases, we've even seen where that has led to a spiritual deconstruction. As they feel like the church may have abandoned them, they really project that on God. And so we've seen that, unfortunately. And so when we communicate these things well, we want to be able to prevent those things. And as we are leading with compassion, beware and be aware. As you're communicating this and messaging it from the pulpit, number one, this is not about you. This moment is not about you. So announcing that and saying, I've had a lot of trouble sleeping, and this has kept me up, and you would not believe, the heartache that I've felt. It's not about you. It's about what is your congregation feeling? What is this outgoing pastor and their family feeling? And don't miss out on the spouse. The spouse has been somebody who's sacrificed and loved. And so really acknowledge all of that. But don't make this moment about you. But the second thing to be aware of is to be able to care for the pastor and their family. When you're parting ways, you're not just making an impact on their lives, but they might have other family members who are part of the church, extended family or their kids, but you have to realize that there is a lot going on there. And so as we are able to show and demonstrate this compassion, that we are also, the fruit of that compassion is we are building trust. We want to build trust, and we do that in a loving and gracious way. The last one is consistency. We have to have a consistency in our messaging, consistency in ongoing messaging, right? So what does that look like? That means that every person has to be saying the same thing, that we have to be in sync. So there has to be agreement between the leadership and that outgoing pastor. There has to be the same message that is going out to the church and out to the church staff, whoever's remaining. We don't want someone who's rogue out there who says, yeah, but I was in the room and this is actually what happened. We want to have agreement with that outgoing pastor. This is what we are going to say. And we want to be as honest and as transparent as possible while still maintaining dignity. We are not backing up the truck and spilling all of the beans. But also with consistency, we want to make sure that we have the consistency of communicating ongoing ministry. We have to remember that people are listening to things like this through the lens of me. How will this decision impact me? Will it impact my kids and their ministry? If it's a youth pastor, will my Sunday school class be impacted? What is the impact on me? So to be able to give them an assurance of saying, hey, the kingdom of God's still moving and our ministry is still going. But in the process of doing that, sometimes, and this is because pastors are compassionate people and they want to care for the flock in the midst of this. And so to beware and to be aware, number one, don't overpromise the future. Don't paint a picture that everything's going to be wonderful and perfect. And the second thing is don't offer quick solutions. It's okay to sit with people and say, this is hard. We actually don't have all of the answers, that this is complex. So be truthful and honest about the things you know, and to say we don't really know that yet, and we'll get back to you on that, on the other pieces. And the fruit of being consistent is that you're building trust. At Pastoral Transitions, we really get to enter in at that point where your leadership team, your elder board has made the decision that they're going to let somebody go. And we walk with outgoing pastors on behalf of the church leadership. And so we do that really in three areas of engagement. And we say that that's career. And so we are helping with career pivot and vocational discernment, what's next. And that's everything from resumes to interviews to job finding assistance. We come alongside in the area of coaching, whether that's pastoral coaching, financial coaching, life and leadership coaching. We've built out a nationwide network of people that help us in that space. And the last one is counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, and family counseling. The goal in all of this, our goal is to help you transition your outgoing pastor well, because it enhances church unity, it models the love of Jesus, and it breeds a healthy pastoral transition. So we would love to be able to talk with you further, to be able to walk with outgoing pastors. We walk with them over the course of 6 months, and we get to pour into them while you get to help your church move on. And so here's just a couple of ways, but feel free. I have my cell phone on there, my email address. We're always happy to talk to you and to be able to walk through with your church in a healthy way.